First, I want to ground the audience on something that we produce at Comcast twice a year. It's called the Effectv TV Viewership Report. And it's a report that looks at the current position of TV viewing across our footprint, which is 17 million households in 65 markets. That equates to almost 9 billion hours of viewing content. And this report is intended to inform and educate marketers and the buying community on trends and how they can lean in and adjust their television buying and planning schedules. And so really, when we think about this past year and the year that was, and I know we'll get into it and talk about it a lot, but the findings in this report, especially for the second half of 2020, became incredibly critical and hugely relevant because there was a drastic shift in viewership. Because sports went away in March, when March Madness, days before leading up to our quarantine, March Madness was canceled. And so that kind of was a domino effect across the industry. Some key takeaways from our viewership report. In the second half of 2020, Comcast households consumed almost 20 billion hours of TV viewing, which was up 3 billion hours year on year. And that's the equivalent of 160 hours of additional viewing time per household. 160 hours of additional viewing time per household. So this viewership report is really gold when you put it in the hands of marketers and agencies.
So what about sports in particular and the fans and the audience for sports, going through this whole transition and this kind of strange time?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the sports conversation, as I mentioned, sports viewership came to a halt in March of 2020, days before that March Madness tournament. And so with that, our measurement and our insights team delivered daily viewership updates to key holdco leadership and marketers so that they could understand where are the sports fans going, right? And how could they continue to advertise, especially with everybody inside. Viewership was on the rise and marketers needed to reach those sports fans. And so that's really where data as our backbone and our set-top boxes came into play. And we were able to deliver this in real time to the buy-side community. We know there became huge pent-up demand for these loyal sports viewers. And so in the back half of 2020, during the starts and the restarts of many of these seasons, there was a tremendous explosion in sports viewership and sports-related content.
In this transition where sports fans are sort of dispersed through this period, and you guys have a handle on where they are, how does that impact the advertisers' planning and investment?
Yeah, the conversation for the advertisers' planning and investment around sports changed in a good way because it pivoted to audiences and it pivoted to our set-top box data. And we were able to create what we like to call a sports viewing matrix, which showed that if the NHL wasn't on the air, where are those NHL viewers in other sports? So they're not just NHL loyalists, but they watch alternative sports. And so then it allowed marketers to kind of lean in on that, as well as removing sports from the foundation of their marketing plans and kind of ensuring that it was the cherry on top, but not hanging their entire marketing branding campaign on one season or one league or one team. And so that, in a way, is truly transformative as we launch 2021, because it's a change in the way our sellers go to market. And we talk about how critical it is to sell an audience. Sports does have a role, but the role is not as prominent now. And I think the marketing and the advertising community understands that there's so many other ways to reach this audience, which is awesome.
So what about the different ways to reach them and, sort of innovation that you're seeing from the buy side in terms of the kinds of advertising? Tell us a little bit about that and also about sort of expectations around performance.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think as we've leaned into this daily, almost weekly set-top box measurement and being able to show these trends in this TV viewership report, which again comes out twice a year. We know that campaigns that incorporate sports deliver an average household reach of 34% higher than those that do not include sports. But marketers have adjusted that tentpole aspect of sports in many cases, in many ways, and they've pivoted. And so we see that kind of having ripple effects to the buy side community, and to the planners. As of now, sports are not guaranteed. We don't know with COVID when they will continue to come in a more regular cadence, right? And the seasons can kind of go up in flames in a minute. And so being able to then buy and have that core buy focused on an audience, that sports viewer audience, but not necessarily in a game itself, and then surrounding it and having that event potentially be the cherry on top is really what we've seen our marketers do most recently.
Now, a lot of national advertising for sports is not addressable. It's not targeted. It's based on reach. You guys have an opportunity to be a little bit more granular. Tell us a little bit about what Effectv does in terms of delivering an audience that's a little bit more granular than what a normal national buy would be.
Yeah, on the sports front, Effectv, we do a great job in terms of taking a large national advertiser that might be a sponsor of a league, and they want to have a presence and really surround sound those games. And so we're able to put stuff together that crosses all of our markets, and that has a unified kind of go-to-market approach for that advertiser. And then drives towards their goals and objectives. So in the case of, and I'll bring up the March Madness, we had a large auto sponsor, and we had done just that. We had taken their large sponsorship of the tourney, and we had broken it down into a more local level where they could then have surround sound in those markets. And then we created promotional spots. We were able to drive we were going to drive to those games and to those tournaments. And so that really gives the advertisers just one extra layer of branding when you come down to buying with Effectv.
So, Melanie, we've been talking about the trajectory of innovation around TV for a few years now, and it seems that innovation has really accelerated during this time. More data, targeting, measurement, attribution tools, expectations around attribution. Tell us a little bit about how Effectv is thinking about embracing these changes and what the experience has been at the company, and maybe what that portends for the roadmap ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, prior to the pandemic, I call it the duopoly, really conditioned the marketplace. So Google and Facebook did a great job in terms of introducing the word audience to marketers and to agencies, and to them embracing the term audience. Prior to that term, most of our go-to-market approaches were truly transactional or product focused. Then, we kind of were making that pivot away from age, gender to audience with our audience intelligence platform, as well as ampersands and platform. And so the pandemic accelerated that because of the opportunity to see the data in real time, and the opportunity to then buy on those audiences in real time, similar to how folks are spending with the duopoly and large digital players. And so we've had a front row seat at this table now. We've been able to sit with many of the holdcos with our agency leadership council, as well as just our large top-to-top meetings, to educate the buy side on what it means and kind of reframe that we are an audience company, an audience delivery company, not a local cable company. And that conversation continues to resonate across all layers and all silos at the buy side, because we have a cross-platform solution. We're not just linear. And so that's what's really exciting as we move into 2021, is just capturing different investments, different buckets of investments across the buy side, and showing them that we can deliver on client outcomes.